The storm tore across the canyon like a living thing. Lightning splitting the sky, thunder hammering the earth, rain lashing down in sheets thick enough to blur the world into a watery haze. Cassidy Flynn had barely reached the fence line of his small ranch when a scream sliced through the storm, a human sound sharp and desperate, carried across the chaos. He didn't hesitate. He ran toward it, boots sinking into mud, heart hammering. He had no idea that following that cry would change everything about his life, or that it would lead him straight into the path of danger, desire, and a choice few men had ever faced. At the jagged edge of Devil's Canyon, a massive boulder had broken loose, sending smaller rocks cascading down the slope. Beneath them, two figures lay trapped, limbs pinned, blood mixing with rainwater. Cassidy's breath caught in his throat. The lightning revealed two women, towering figures nearly 6 feet tall, their powerful builds speaking of years trained in combat and survival. One of them, conscious, grimaced. Pain etched across her face, yet her eyes held no fear, only sharp calculation. She measured him as he approached, deciding if he was friend or threat. "I'm going to help you," Cassidy shouted, voice swallowed by the storm. She answered in Apache first, then in broken English. "You leave. Dangerous for you." But Cassidy was already moving, grabbing a sturdy branch to lever the rocks. Every muscle in his back screamed with effort. The unconscious sister had a deep gash across her forehead, and Cassidy's mind raced as he shifted stone after stone, boots slipping in the slick mud. Nia, the conscious one he would learn, watched him closely. Not with gratitude exactly, but something deeper, a recognition that made his chest tighten, as if she could see into the marrow of him. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, he freed them both. Cassidy faced a choice. Town was 5 miles away. His cabin, just 2. Doc Henderson would have asked questions he couldn't answer, questions about why he'd chosen to save Apache women rather than leave them. But when he lifted Kira into his arms, her weight heavy and unyielding, he made his decision. Nia limped beside him, refusing help despite her injured leg, scanning the canyon as if expecting pursuit. "Your people," Cassidy gasped between steps. "They think we are dead," Nia replied simply. By the time they reached his cabin, Cassidy was soaked, exhausted, mud-caked, yet every nerve in his body thrummed with tension. He tore strips from his only good shirt, binding wounds, tending to both women with painstaking care. Kerosene lamplight danced across the walls, casting flickering shadows as his hands brushed against Nia's leg. She flinched minimally, her eyes catching his in a glance that made him pause. There was something in that look, something unspoken, a spark that ignited a slow heat crawling through him. "Why do you help us?" she asked, voice clearer now. "Because it's right," he said, holding her gaze. It was a gesture unfamiliar to her. In her world, men took what they wanted by force. His care, gentle and deliberate, unsettled her in ways Cassidy didn't yet understand. When Kira stirred, dark eyes locking on him, the sisters shared a wordless look that made his pulse quicken. He had stumbled into the orbit of warriors, women who could move through the world like shadows and storms, and now he realized he might be more than a rescuer. He might be the object of their attention. Night deepened. The storm raged outside, but the cabin was a world apart, alive with tension. Nia and Kira arranged themselves near the fire, moving in a fluid synchronicity that spoke of years of training together. Cassidy lay on his narrow bed, hyper-aware of every whisper, every soft shift of fabric. At one point he thought he heard footsteps outside, then nothing. Dreams invaded him, dark eyes watching, hands reaching, voices speaking in tones he could feel but not understand. When dawn broke, the storm had passed, leaving silver mist curling over the canyon floor. Both women stood fully dressed at the foot of his bed, their injuries hidden beneath folds of cloth, eyes unreadable. "The storm is over," Cassidy said almost unnecessarily. "Yes," Nia replied, "but something else has begun." Kira stepped closer, her towering frame commanding even in the small room. "You showed us kindness when you had every reason to fear us. You saved our lives when it would have been easier to walk away." Cassidy sat up slowly, the weight of their presence pressing in. "Not physically," he said, heart hammering. They weren't threatening him, yet emotion held him captive. The sisters exchanged a look, silent communication flowing between them. "We have decided something about you," Kira whispered, her voice intimate, low. Cassidy felt the world tilt. "What are you saying?" Nia leaned closer, firelight catching the dark intensity in her eyes. We discovered that we both want the same thing. The words hit him like thunder. Both daughters of warchief Ayana, fearsome warriors who could command men with a glance, both choosing him. Cassidy swallowed hard, mind reeling. In your world, perhaps impossible, Nia whispered. But in ours, when two women choose the same worthy man, they can share him. The implications crashed over him, the desire in their words, the life they were offering, the depth of trust and danger entwined. He understood then that this was no fleeting attraction. It was an offering of lives, of devotion, of love that could not be measured by ordinary rules. And if he refused, he would leave everything behind, perhaps forever. The cabin was quiet now, but the storm's echo lingered in the walls and in Cassidy's chest. Nia and Kira moved with deliberate care around the small room, their dark eyes never leaving him. Every glance, every subtle shift of weight, spoke volumes in a language he didn't know he understood. He caught himself staring too, often as if trying to memorize every line of their faces, the curve of their jaw, the intensity that radiated from them like heat. They were magnificent and dangerous, and for reasons he didn't yet grasp, he felt drawn into their orbit entirely. Kira adjusted the blankets near the fire, her long limbs folding with uncanny precision, each movement fluid, predatory even, yet calm. We sleep here, she declared, and Cassidy understood this was not a suggestion. Nia settled opposite her sister, and the two women exchanged a look that told him he had no place in the center of this arrangement tonight. He rolled onto his narrow bed, restless, heart hammering with anticipation and confusion. The storm had passed outside, but inside, the air was thick with unspoken tension. Every sound seemed amplified. The crackle of the fire, the rustle of blankets, the faint murmur of words in Apache. Cassidy could sense the sisters communicating, plotting, perhaps even testing him with silent observation. Kira stirred, rolling onto her side to face the fire, dark eyes catching his in the lamplight. Cassidy's pulse quickened, and he felt an unfamiliar awareness spreading through his chest, a combination of fear, awe, and something dangerously akin to desire. Morning came in pale light, mist curling around the canyon. The storm left the ground slick and shining, but Cassidy barely noticed. Both sisters were standing at the foot of his bed, upright despite their injuries, their expressions calm and unreadable. The storm is over, he said. Yes, Nia agreed, voice soft, measured. But something else has begun. Kira moved closer, her presence magnetic, her eyes never leaving his. You showed us kindness when you could have walked away, she said. Tone low, almost intimate. You saved our lives. Cassidy felt the words settle in him like a stone in his chest. I would have done the same for anyone, he said, voice rough. Nia leaned slightly forward, heat radiating from her. You see us as people, she whispered. And Cassidy understood then this simple recognition, this basic acknowledgement of their humanity, was as foreign and valuable as life itself. The day passed in a blur. Cassidy watched as the sisters moved around the cabin with fluid, synchronized grace, attending to small chores, preparing simple food, cleaning dishes. Every gesture reminded him of their warrior training. Disciplined, precise, elegant. When Kira glanced at him, it was with the awareness of someone fully in control of a situation, yet curious about him, measuring him as one might a weapon or a wild animal. He asked carefully, Your father, he'll be looking for you. He believes we are dead, Nia replied. The storm, the rockfall, it covered our tracks. For now we have time. Cassidy swallowed, knowing full well the danger that lingered. Time was a fragile thing, and their presence in his cabin carried risks he could scarcely calculate. He tried to ignore the way his chest tightened each time their eyes met, the way each subtle movement made his pulse race. Night descended with an almost ceremonial weight. He offered his bed again, but both sisters refused. They arranged themselves near the fire, blankets folded neatly around their lithe, muscular forms. Cassidy lay awake, listening to the soft murmur of their conversation in Apache, catching fragments that set his imagination alight. He felt both an intruder and a privileged witness to something profound. Hours later, soft footsteps approached his bedroom. Cassidy's breath caught, muscles tense. Both women appeared at the doorway, tall, imposing, their braided hair catching the flickering firelight. We need to tell you something, Nia said, voice low, urgent. Kira flanked her sister, standing close enough that Cassidy could feel the heat radiating from her body, their presence enveloping him. The words spilled from Nia first, hushed but deliberate. We have been thinking about what we discovered during our vision quest. Cassidy sat up slowly, heart hammering. The weight of their gaze pressed him into the bed. What did you discover? Kira stepped closer, voice dropping to an intimate whisper. We discovered that we both want the same thing. The same man. The sentence hung in the air, heavy as storm clouds, charged with consequences he hadn't anticipated. Cassidy felt the canyon tilt around him, his world shifting. That's impossible, he breathed. In your world, perhaps, Nia said, moving closer. But in ours, when two women choose the same worthy man, they can share him. The revelation left him trembling. Desire, trust, danger. Every emotion coalesced into a single pulse of awareness. Both daughters of warchief Ayana, both fearless, both choosing him. Cassidy realized the gravity of what they were offering. A life and a love that defied everything he knew about the world and himself. He tried to speak, to respond. But the sound of hoofbeats outside shattered the fragile intimacy. The sisters moved instantly, honed instincts kicking in. Nia to the window, Kira near the door, their movements flawless, coordinated. 4 riders cresting the hill, approaching fast. Apache warriors, he realized, and Cassidy's stomach dropped. Root cellar, he whispered. Behind the cabin, hidden by that fallen log. Kira shook her head. If they find us hiding, it will look worse for you. Then what? Cassidy's panic edged his voice. Nia and Kira exchanged a look, wordless, resolute. We tell them we sought shelter from the storm, Nia said. That you offered protection as the treaty requires. And if they don't believe that, Kira's smile was sharp as a blade. Then we remind them who our father is, and that harming his daughter's protector would be unwise. The hoofbeats drew closer, voices calling in Apache. Cassidy's hands shook. He tried to compose himself, brushing mud from his shirt, straightening his posture, attempting a semblance of calm. What happens if they didn't believe us? Kira leaned close, whispering against his ear. Then you understand that what happens next depends on whether you want what we want. Cassidy felt fire flood his veins, fear and anticipation mingling. The riders dismounted, approaching the cabin with weapons readied. Nia and Kira moved with deliberate casualness, arranging themselves around him, projecting an image of ordinary shelter while every fiber of their beings radiated control and intent. The door burst open. 4 painted warriors filled the doorway, eyes locking immediately on the chief's daughters, alive and unharmed. Cassidy, standing between them, felt the weight of the moment crush him. The lead warrior, Takakota, scarred and imposing, scanned the scene, suspicion and calculation warring in his gaze. Warchief Ayana will want to hear the story himself, he said, voice heavy with authority. Nia stepped forward, her tone commanding. Takakota, we are grateful for your search. The storm trapped us, and this rancher offered shelter as the treaty requires. Takakota's eyes flicked to Cassidy, noting his torn shirt, exhaustion, mud-caked face. Relief mixed with suspicion as he processed the impossible scene. You will come home now, he said finally. All 3 of you. Cassidy's stomach froze. Every step of the journey had led to this impossible moment, trapped between 2 of the most formidable women he had ever met and the warriors of a legendary Apache warchief. And yet within the chaos, he felt a growing awareness. He was no longer merely a rescuer. He was part of something far greater, far more dangerous and far more extraordinary than he could have imagined. The ride to the Apache settlement was tense and silent, save for the occasional rustle of leather and the soft creak of saddles. Cassidy sat between Nia and Kira, each of them a pillar of strength, their presence both comforting and terrifying. The canyon walls seemed to close around them, shadows lengthening as the afternoon sun dipped low. He could feel their glances on him, subtle but deliberate, and he realized how acutely aware he had become of every breath, every movement, every small shift of weight. Nia leaned slightly toward him, voice low but firm. Whatever happens, remember this, we chose you. Kira added, equally quiet but no less intense. Our father respects courage above all else. Show no fear. Cassidy nodded, throat tight, forcing himself to meet their eyes. Courage, yes, but the stakes were higher than he'd ever known. Stories of men who wronged Apache women, of disrespect, of even glances that spelled danger, flashed through his mind. And yet here he was, entrusted with not just their safety but their lives, riding alongside 2 of the most formidable warriors in the territory. The settlement emerged suddenly, nestled within a narrow canyon that acted as a natural fortress. Teepees dotted the landscape, Smoke curling from cooking fires. Children ran between structures. Women tended gardens and animals, and men worked quietly on weapons and horses. Yet as their party approached, activity ceased. Every eye turned toward them. The miraculous return of the chief's daughters, and the white rancher riding with them. Warchief Ayana stepped from the largest structure, a figure of calm authority and predator-like grace. Tall, broad-shouldered, with streaks of silver threading his black hair, he moved with a confidence that made Cassidy's pulse spike. His eyes first sought his daughters, relief flickering briefly, before hardening into the same piercing gaze that seemed to read every secret. Then those eyes found Cassidy, and the temperature seemed to drop. "Father," Nia said, dismounting with effortless grace despite her bandaged leg. "We have much to tell you." Ayana approached slowly, each step deliberate, studying Cassidy as though weighing his worth. "Takakota tells me you sheltered my daughters during the storm." His voice, precise and unaccented, held weight far beyond the English words themselves. Cassidy dismounted, voice steady despite the fear pressing against his ribs. "I found them injured, sir. Anyone would have done the same." "Anyone," Ayana repeated, savoring the word. "Yet many would not. Many would have seen opportunity instead of obligation." He circled Cassidy slowly, predatorily, and Cassidy forced himself to meet the chief's gaze without flinching. "My daughters tell me you asked for nothing in return. They needed help." That was enough. There was a pause, and Cassidy felt the weight of the entire settlement's attention. Then, almost imperceptibly, Ayana's expression softened, not warmth exactly, but a grudging respect that carried its own danger. "In my culture," Ayana continued, "when someone saves the life of a chief's family, they incur a debt." Cassidy's throat went dry. "I don't want payment," he said carefully. "Nevertheless," Ayana replied, stopping directly in front of him, "you will have it." The chief's gaze shifted to his daughters, who had been watching tensely. "Tell me everything that happened." Nia and Kira exchanged a look, a silent agreement passing between them. Cassidy felt the weight of it, the gravity of whatever they were about to reveal. "Father," Kira began, voice formal, "we need to speak of our vision quest." Ayana raised an eyebrow. "Your vision revealed something?" "Yes," Nia said, moving subtly to stand beside Cassidy. "It revealed our destiny." The words hung in the air like smoke, and Cassidy felt the settlement's gaze pin him in place. Ayana's eyes narrowed as he observed the daughters flanking the white rancher. "Speak plainly," he commanded. Kira stepped forward slightly, every muscle taut with the precision of her warrior training. "We both choose him." The statement reverberated across the assembled people, and Cassidy felt several warriors intake breath sharply. An elderly woman near the largest teepee whispered urgent prayers. He couldn't tear his gaze from the sisters' faces. Their expressions were serene yet fierce, filled with certainty and unspoken promise. "You both choose the same man," Ayana said slowly, voice a low rumble. "Yes," Nia confirmed. "As our great-grandmother chose with her sister generations ago, when the tribe was small and strong, warriors were few." Cassidy's mind reeled. He'd never heard of such a thing. Yet elders around him nodded knowingly, as if this decision, while extraordinary, had precedent in their history. "Our great-grandmother shared a husband," he whispered. "When survival demanded it," Ayana replied, pacing silently, his moccasins barely making a sound on the earth. The settlement watched with rapt attention. This was a moment destined to be remembered, spoken of around fires for generations. Ayana's gaze returned to his daughters. "You believe this white rancher is worth such consideration?" "He risked everything to save us," Kira answered. "He asked for nothing in return. He treated us with honor," Nia added softly, her voice dropping to an intimate tone that made Cassidy's chest tighten. "He makes us feel things we have never felt before." The chief stopped pacing, fixing Cassidy with a stare that seemed to pierce straight through him. "What do you say to this rancher?" "My daughters offer you something that no white man has ever been given. Do you understand what they are proposing?" Cassidy looked at Nia and Kira, their eyes alight with hope and fear mingled. He realized that these women, warriors and daughters of a chieftain, were offering him a gift beyond comprehension. "I understand. They honor me beyond anything I deserve," he said, voice steady, though his heart raced, "and accepting would change everything about my life." "You would leave your white world behind forever," Ayana stated bluntly. The weight of it settled over Cassidy like a physical blow. His ranch, his life, his identity, all hanging in the balance. But when he looked at Nia and Kira, he understood something startling. He wanted it to change. "And if I refuse?" he asked. "Then you ride away with our gratitude and protection," Ayana replied. "But you never see my daughters again." The choice was laid bare. Stay and embrace a destiny he could scarcely imagine, or leave and spend the rest of his life wondering what might have been. Nia reached out, touching his hand. Electricity shot through him. "The choice is yours," she whispered. Kira stepped closer from the other side. "We will spend our lives showing you that you made the right decision." Cassidy glanced around. Warriors, elders, children, every eye fixed upon him. And then he met Ayana's gaze. The weight of the chief's authority, the daughter's future, and his own heart pressed in on him. "I have one question," Cassidy said, voice steady, tinged with awe. "Ask it," Ayana replied. "If I stay, if I become Apache, will I have your blessing? Not just your permission, but your blessing?" For the first time, a hint of a smile touched Ayana's lips. "You ask the right question, White Rancher. Any man brave enough to risk his life for strangers, wise enough to seek a father's blessing, and strong enough to handle both my daughters, he might just deserve what they're offering." Cassidy felt the settlement's eyes on him, the gravity of every heart and gaze pressing him forward. "I accept," he said, voice ringing across the canyon. "I accept your daughter's offer, and I ask for your blessing." The words echoed, and Cassidy felt the future settle into his bones. He had stepped into a destiny that no man could have written alone. The trials would come, the challenges would follow, but for the first time, he felt the electric certainty of belonging, of love, and of being chosen. The next morning dawned crisp and clear, the storm's fury a distant memory, leaving the canyon bathed in pale gold sunlight. Cassidy awoke with Nia and Kira still at his sides, their warmth and presence a grounding force. Every muscle in his body tensed with anticipation. The trials were about to begin, and the weight of the chief's judgment hung heavy over him. The first trial was hunting. Ayana led him to the edge of the canyon, where the terrain opened into rugged plains and scattered woodlands. Cassidy, armed with the bow and arrows Takakota had provided, felt the unfamiliar weight in his hands. Nia and Kira flanked him silently, their eyes tracking every movement. "Remember patience," Nia whispered, her breath brushing his ear. "Observe. Wait for the right moment," Kira added, her tone equally low and commanding. "The hunt is not just skill. It is knowing yourself, knowing the land, and respecting what you take." Cassidy nodded, drawing on his ranching experience. Hours spent tracking cattle, reading signs in the soil, watching the skies. Slowly, he stalked a large buck across a clearing, heart pounding as adrenaline sharpened his senses. The deer lifted its head, ears twitching, and Cassidy froze. He let it move closer, careful, calculating. Then with a single release, the arrow struck true. Nia exhaled softly, a small smile on her lips. Kira's hand brushed his shoulder as they passed. Subtle encouragement and approval all at once. When they returned to the settlement with fresh meat, the watching warriors nodded, murmuring amongst themselves, their respect grudging but genuine. Cassidy felt a surge of quiet triumph, the first test behind him. The wisdom trial was far less physical but no less demanding. Ayana presented a dispute between two families over water rights, a long-standing tension threatening the harmony of the settlement. Cassidy listened carefully, asking questions and weighing the claims. Drawing on his experience mediating disputes on his ranch, he proposed a solution that satisfied both sides without offending tradition or pride. The elders' approving looks and murmured agreements confirmed that he had passed, though he knew the final test remained. The courage trial was terrifying in its simplicity. Ayana led him to a narrow ledge high above a sacred cave. Below, the ancestors had left markings in the stone, and atop them rested a single white eagle feather. Cassidy had to climb, descending carefully over jagged rocks, testing every sinew and nerve. Every slip risked death. He imagined Nia and Kira above, their eyes sharp and expectant, and it fueled his resolve. Step by cautious step, he reached the cave, retrieved the feather, and climbed back. The gathering crowd erupted in silent acknowledgement. Every pair of eyes watched as Ayana took the feather, studying it in fading light before giving Cassidy a subtle nod of approval. "You have proven yourself worthy," the chief declared. "Tonight we bind you to our daughters and to our people. The bonding ceremony was unlike anything Cassidy had ever witnessed. The settlement gathered, a chorus of anticipation, as he stood between Nia and Kira. Ayana spoke first in Apache, the cadence of the words carrying authority and reverence. Then in English he translated the significance. 3 lives, once separate, now united. Division between peoples transformed into unity through love. Cassidy felt the gravity of every gaze, the energy of every heart in the settlement. Nia and Kira reached for him, their hands sliding into his, grounding him in the certainty of their choice. The ritual was intimate, solemn, yet filled with a fierce joy. When Ayana finished, Cassidy realized he had crossed an impossible threshold, from a solitary rancher to a man, embraced by warriors, accepted by a people, and bound to 2 extraordinary women. Later, in the private dwelling set apart from the others, Nia and Kira surrounded him once more. Their touches were reverent, their whispers intimate, and Cassidy felt a deep, thrilling electricity between them. They had shown him their love fully, completely, without hesitation. Every glance, every word, every brush of skin told him he had become a part of their world, chosen and cherished in ways he had never imagined. "Do you regret leaving your old life behind?" Kira asked softly, voice warm against the stillness of the room. "How can I regret finding my destiny?" Cassidy replied, glancing between the 2 women who had claimed him so completely. Nia smiled, nestling closer. "Our great-grandmother would have approved. She always said love makes its own rules." Cassidy's chest tightened with the truth of it, the way a single act of kindness had rippled into a life transformed. As sleep claimed them that night,
Cassidy marveled at the journey that had brought him here.
a violent storm, 2 injured women, and a choice to show compassion had led to a love beyond imagining. Nia and Kira had saved him from a life of solitude, poverty, and half-lived days, just as he had saved them. Together they had forged a new destiny. Years later, when their children asked how their parents met, Nia and Kira would smile, recounting the storm that changed everything, the kindness that conquered fear, and the love that rewrote the rules of their ancient people. Cassidy would remind them that the best decisions are made with the heart, especially when that heart is big enough to love without limits. And in that love he had found not only a home, but the extraordinary life he had never dared to imagine.